Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my thesis for one of the greatest films ever made, Blade Runner. This film truly is something lyrical, poetical, and prolific. To me, it's like poetry on celluloid. Ridley Scott's direction and his attention to detail are impeccable. And the cinematography by David Cronenweth is some of the best cinematography I've ever seen, and arguably the best cinematography for a soundstage production. The themes of this film truly resonate with me. Themes such as what it means to be human and the power of memories. And the symbolism of this film cannot be overlooked. So take this journey with me as we explore the central themes and the symbolism that are in the film Blade Runner. The theatrical cut of Blade Runner was released on June 25th in 1982, and the final cut was released on October 5th, 2007. Produced by the Ladd Company, which is owned by Alan Ladd Jr., a man who played a significant role in getting Star Wars made by Fox, and produced by Shaw Brothers Studio, who are renowned for their production of classic kung fu films. Directed by Ridley Scott and based upon Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I found this to be one of the most poetical and lyrical films that I have ever seen. Ridley Scott has such an impeccable eye for detail, which is unparalleled and significantly contributes to the suspension of disbelief that I feel when I watch his films. I truly believe that this world exists. So much so that when I look outside my window, when I walk the streets in the city that I live, I am in the world of Blade Runner. Blade Runner was a prophetic vision of the future, a prophecy that came true, a world that is filthy, polluted, devoid of plant and animal life, and overpopulated and brimming with multiculturalism, a world devoid of family life and rooted in apathy. The world of Blade Runner is literally seen in nearly every major city in America. The cinematography by Jordan Cronenweth is the best cinematography that I have ever seen for a soundstage production. The cinematography is another melody that is part of the epic poetical composition that is Blade Runner. This film noir style of lighting, combined with the sci-fi elements of the amazing special effects that were used, creates such a powerful piece of cinema that continues to be imitated and mimicked even today. The soundtrack by Vangelis is one of the best soundtracks ever produced for a film, and I cannot imagine how this film would be without it. It is a central component to this film, and the compositions are so haunting and emotional. It was the perfect mix of film noir mixed with sci-fi elements. The central theme that strikes me when watching this film is what does it mean to be human, and how the power of memories impact and form the soul. I find the notion of artificial memories to be so fascinating, especially with the advent of social media and how so many people invest in the lives of others, almost to the point that the memories that they are creating aren't even those from their own lives. I also find the idea of an individual consciously knowing that their memories are not their own, and the idea of coping with the fact that you live a lie to be both haunting and fascinating. Now, if memories form the soul, then for the replicas in this film, it's almost as if their soul is a lie. Nevertheless, the souls for these replicas do exist, and I think that this notion is what makes the film so powerful, that the distinction between human and replica is so minimal because whether we possess real memories or false memories, it still leads to the creation of a soul. This film has sparked an ongoing debate whether the main protagonist, Deckard, is a replicant or not. And this ongoing debate illustrates the brilliance of the narrative. For me, this is the point of the film. Whether he was a replicant or not doesn't matter as much as the loneliness and yearning for genuine, cherished memories that we all have in our hearts. That yearning. It's about wanting to have happiness in one's life, regardless if one is a replicant or human. All sentient beings can feel this, and this comes full circle. Whether the audience identifies with Roy or Deckard as a human or Deckard as a replicant, what matters is we identify with them, just period, in general. We see ourselves in these characters, the loneliness, the longing for more time to live, more memories to cherish, genuine memories. This is the point of this film, and this is the reason why I adore this movie. In regards to the power of memories and how they influence an individual, I think of the notion that an individual cannot truly exist without the mind. Even if you're just a brain damaged vegetable, you may be alive, but you are not truly living because the universe cannot be experienced without a mind. It reminds me of how some religious teachings emphasize how immoral acts carried out in the mind still influence one's soul. So, in short, the power of memories and thought life in general, whether based upon truth or lies, has a significant impact of the formation of our souls and character, no matter if we are human or replica. A replica may not have a soul in the spiritual sense, but they do have feelings. And if we ever get to a point where artificial humans live among us, I hope we are not as callous as the individuals, the humans in Blade Runner. Now, if man made God in his image and we are emotional creatures that feel we should be cared for with mercy and compassion, and man made replica in his image, why doesn't man extend the same courtesy to the replica that we expect of God? Or could it be that the world of Blade Runner and the way the human characters treat the replicas depict the sentiment that the apathetic and hopeless man feels God has towards him, which is one of callousness, indifference, and unfair cruelty? It's truly something to ponder. Now, in reference to the opening titles and the opening subtitle that explains the world of Blade Runner, it just leads me to ask, if the execution of replicas is called retirement and not called execution, then even in death, the humans deprive the replicas of their humanity. Now, the film opens up with an eye, which is the window to the soul, with a flame reflecting the hellish landscape of the industrialized world of Blade Runner. This imagery is a reflection of the Blade Runner world, a world on fire for its inhumanity, and it pierces the artificial soul of the replicant. The eye is a powerful symbol that is used throughout the film, and it is because the eye is the window to the soul. The symbolism of the eye is also reminiscent of the Egyptian symbol that is the Eye of Horus. The Tyrell building is also reminiscent of an Egyptian pyramid, which also contributes to this association. Now, Blade Runner seems to be telling an inverse version of the story of Horus. And in the original myth, Horus, who is the god of the sky, is in a conflict with his rival Set, god of disorder, in which Horus gets his eye torn out, but his eye is ultimately returned to him by deities such as Thoth, the god of wisdom. And in turn, he offers his eye to his father Osiris, which sustains him in the afterlife. However, in Blade Runner, Roy, who is descending from the sky in the spinner and whose eye we see, and this is like the eye of Horus as he descends to earth from the sky, because Horus was the sky god, and the earth is a place of disorder. Now, we see this disorder reflected in Roy's eye, conveying not only the disorder that he sees, but also the disorder that he is enduring within himself, knowing that he will die soon due to his short lifespan. Now, this is similar to the disorder brought upon by Set, god of disorder. Now, rather than having his eye torn out, Roy is having his life torn away from him as his lifespan is coming to an end. And rather than having his vision returned to him by a deity such as Thoth, Roy is given the path to his maker in the form of Chu, who is the maker of the replicant's eyes, and who in fact designed Roy's eyes. Chu gives the path to Roy's maker when he tells him about J.F. Sebastian. Now, rather than seeking to sustain his father in the afterlife like Horace did, Roy seeks to prolong his own life by seeking out Tyrell, his maker and father. And when Tyrell explains to Roy that he cannot extend his life, Roy kills Tyrell, his father, by puncturing his eyes with his thumbs, which is an act of hatred and desperation since he knows he will inevitably die soon. It's like watching a crushed soul literally crushing the soul of his maker. Now, the eye is also symbolic of the Eye of Providence, which is found on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States and is also associated with Freemasonry symbolism, which is intended to remind us that humanity's thoughts and deeds are watched over by God. The Eye of Providence is also on the $1 bill, and I find it very telling that despite the decay of the earth and the decay that we see in the society of Blade Runner, that capitalism continues to endure, as illustrated by the giant billboards and the shameless advertising that is juxtaposition with the decay of society. It's business as usual. And again, this is very reflective of many cities in America, especially those with a significant amount of gentrification. The eye is also symbolic in the Voight-Kampff test because the eye is used as a gauge to analyze emotional and physiological responses. So the eye, the window to the soul, is used to gauge the artificiality of the soul by gauging an emotional response, namely the lack of empathy in a replicant. The Voight-Kampff test triggers the replica's psyche, which is caused by a lack of genuine memories and living a short existence. It's like the lack of genuine life experience causes them to display a lack of empathy with the Voight-Kampff hypothetical scenarios, because the replica can't reason or comprehend hypothetical or imaginary things, which leads me to wonder if a lack of true life experience produces a lack of imagination. Children have an imagination, but due to being at the early stages of human development, lack the capacity to place themselves in certain hypothetical scenarios, which is illustrated in the responses of the replicas. However, the replicas essentially had no emotions at first, and over time developed emotions. So, in some ways, the replicas lack even less emotional intelligence than a human child, despite that they are very childlike and how they exhibit their frustrations and emotions in general. Now, when Holden administers the Voight-Kampff test to Leon, Leon kills him in response to the hypothetical scenario about his mother. The motherless kills for having no recollection of a true mother. This also has significance for me because the world of Blade Runner is one devoid of plant and animal life. The Earth, Mother Earth, has been destroyed, essentially making all the inhabitants motherless, if you will. Another thing to ponder is how the lack of empathy is indicative of an individual being a replicant, regarded as a non human by most in the world of Blade Runner. This leads me to wonder how an autistic individual or even an individual with Asperger's syndrome would be identified as by the void contest, since these individuals have great challenges with understanding empathy and have a lack of a social filter due to their disability. Now, it's very troubling when Tyrell introduces the replica of his niece Rachel and says, more human than human. In addition, his statements regarding how he gifts the replicas with a past by giving them artificial memories to create a cushion for the emotions is very interesting because I would argue that many humans, especially those who have endured traumatic life events, would want to erase their memories to ease their pain. Yet for the replicas, it's the opposite. This is the double edged sword of the power of memories. Selective memory can only block out so much, and not only do we have to endure good memories, but we also have to live with the bad ones as well. The dilemma that the replicas endure and how they resonate with normal humans can be seen in the character of J.F. Sebastian, who, like the replicants, grows old too fast due to accelerated decrepitude. It's also telling how Sebastian has to remain on Earth as a result of his disease. It's like Earth is for the dying, a dying planet, designated to the dying, whether it be replicants or individuals who are deficient, like Sebastian. Another theme that is inherent in this film are those pertaining to Judeo Christian religious symbolism. Roy is like the fallen angel Lucifer, who seeks to gain more power, more life from his maker, and who seeks to destroy him when that power cannot be given. Roy even misquotes William Blake when he says, "Fury, the angels fell," inferring that he and the other replicas are like fallen angels. This Judeo Christian religious symbolism also arises in the notion that Deckard was led by scales of an artificial snake to the replica Zora, and the scene involving Zora and her dance with the snake. Zora is introduced as Miss Salome and the snake. Watch her take the pleasures from the serpent that once corrupted man. Obviously, the snake represents Satan in the Garden of Eden when he tempted Adam and Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge, which ultimately casted them out from paradise. For me, this has both a symbolic, religious meaning and a sociological meaning as well. This scene, which clearly infers an act of bestiality, clearly displays the depravity and immoral decadence that has taken over the society of Blade Runner. So much so that Deckard even has to turn his head away from the act of bestiality. And I find it very ironic how Deckard even uses the guise of being from the Committee of Moral Abuses when he tries to investigate Zora in the dressing room. As far as the religious symbolism, Deckard seeks the knowledge of whether Miss Salome is the replicant that he is looking for, and the snake whose scale acted as a clue lured Deckard to this knowledge, which nearly kills him until he is saved by the virtuous woman that is Rachel when she shoots Leon in the head. I think this is very telling because both the corrupt woman Zora and the virtuous woman Rachel are replicants. They are not supposed to be considered human, but clearly they display the duality of mankind, which is both good and evil. Now, Rachel is also a biblical reference. Rachel, who is Jacob's second wife, became his second wife because her father basically forced Jacob to marry his first daughter. And he was initially tricked because he wanted to marry Rachel, but the father substituted Rachel with his other daughter Leah. And he was able to differentiate between the two because Leah had tender eyes. So here we are with the analogy regarding the eyes, the symbolism with the eyes. And Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. But most telling is the fact that Rachel was initially unable to conceive children until she was blessed by God. Now, the religious symbolism here has to be saved for the sequel, and everybody knows what that's about regarding Rachel giving birth to a child. So we'll save that one for later. But let's go back to Salome, to Zora, whose stage name is Miss Salome. Now, in Bible history, a woman named Salome figures into the story of the death of John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin and baptizer. Now, King Herod divorced his wife and married Herodias, and Salome was Herodias' daughter through Philip, making Salome the daughter and grandniece of Philip and the stepdaughter and grandniece by marriage of Herod. She was also both granddaughter and grandniece to her own mother. Now, when Herodias came to live with Herod, Salome came with her. Now, John the Baptist had publicly criticized King Herod for his divorce and remarriage to his niece and sister-in-law, and Herodias was enraged as a result. Herod then had John the Baptist thrown into prison in order to placate his wife, niece, sister-in-law, Herodias. Now, John the Baptist's fate was then decided when Herodias' daughter, who is Salome, danced for Herod at his birthday banquet. So here we have, again, another analogy, more symbolism. Salome danced for Herod, just like Miss Salome, Zora, danced in Blade Runner for Deckard. Well, not for Deckard, but you get what I'm saying. Now, pleased with Salome's performance, King Herod offered her a request, and Salome went to Herodias to ask her advice on what the gift should be, and Herodias told her to ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Salome obediently asked Herod for this gift, and as a result, John the Baptist was beheaded in prison, and his head was given to Herodias' daughter, Salome, who took it to her mother, Herodias. And I think the analogy here has to do with the dance of Salome and how this brought about the death of John the Baptist, as Zora's dance nearly brought about the death of Deckard when he was almost killed by Leon for killing his comrade Zora, until he was rescued by Rachel. And since we're on the topic of women, I just want to address a certain issue, since I have encountered numerous essays accusing this film of being misogynistic, which I think is preposterous, fallacious, and outright despicable. It's a shameless attempt by cancel culture and radical feminists to cancel this important and historical film. I think it is outright cruel to accuse the filmmakers and the message they are trying to convey in this film as being one of hatred towards women. I feel some of these critics misdirect their fallacious criticisms and are really upset with the religious symbolism of the evil temptress type of character that we see in Zora, and that her being depicted as an exotic dancer is somehow demeaning or somehow weakens her. Never mind the fact that she fought hard to escape her execution, or that she was put in this quote-unquote sexually objectified position as a dancer because she was a fugitive from the law and she was trying to blend in. So for the first point, yes, biblical history does have its share of evil woman characters such as Jezebel and Delilah, but it also has plenty of virtuous women such as Ruth, Mary of Nazareth, and Deborah. But I think the real reason these critics are attacking this specific character and the religious symbolism that is there is because Bible characters such as Delilah and Jezebel, who are the evil temptress type of characters, are from the Old Testament, which totally was a patriarchal time in Bible history. But are we to cancel every film now that utilizes this type of religious symbolism in an effort to suppress history and decry the filmmakers as hateful towards women? That is a sweeping generalization, and I also think that these people have a problem with male heterosexuality in general. And this fallacious thinking is even more apparent in regards to the character Pris. These critics are upset because she was a pleasure model. But it's these critics' own projections and judgments that are rendering Pris as a worthless character because of this pleasure model designation. Because if we look at how deeply Roy loves Pris, we can see that this male character, Roy, clearly finds more worth in her than just her being a quote unquote sex object. So again, it's the critics who are deeming Pris as worthless, not the male characters in the film. And in regards to Rachel, these critics are mainly upset because she is portrayed as the typical 1940s film noir dame, and because of the manner in which Deckard refused Rachel to leave his apartment. They feel it was too aggressive. Some even claiming he raped her, which is ridiculous because she initially wanted to leave his apartment. So that's why they're saying that. But Deckard knew that she didn't really want to leave, but that she was scared to engage in a romantic relationship because this is literally the first romantic encounter that she has ever had. Now, combine this with the fact that she just discovered that she wasn't a real human, and you can understand why she would be scared. She denies herself love because she feels she is not real. But Deckard is going to reassure her, he's going to make her feel real. Deckard knows she's scared, and they both know that they are attracted to each other. And Deckard's act of quote unquote aggression when he pushes her back from the door wasn't because he wanted to have sex with her, but because he wanted her to show her true feelings, to not be afraid to be human, to love, to touch. Rachel is not a weak character. When she cries, when Deckard recounts a fake memory that she has, that's strength because it takes strength to be transparent and to show vulnerability like that. Now, Rachel is not a damsel in distress. In fact, if it wasn't for Rachel saving Deckard, who was the one in distress, when he was almost killed by Leon, the movie would have ended right there because he would have died. So, the only person that actually did any life saving of someone in distress was a woman, with the one in distress being a man. So, again, how is this film misogynistic? Okay, now enough of that. Coming back to more religious analogies. One here that I see is for Roy, as Tyrell deems him the prodigal son. So Roy is like the prodigal son, the light that burned twice as bright but burns half as long. Only when he returns back to his father, he isn't given what he seeks, which in Roy's case is long life. Now, in the Bible story, the empty handed prodigal son seeks his father's forgiveness for squandering and wasting his inheritance that his father gave him. And ultimately, his father forgives him and takes him in once more. Another iconic scene from this film also has religious symbolism, and I'm referring to when Roy dies and he delivers his poetic tears in the rain dialogue as he releases the dove. In Christian iconography, the dove symbolizes the Holy Spirit, and in the Gospels, the Holy Spirit is compared to a dove during the baptism of Jesus. And I believe that when Roy dies, he is redeemed from his fallen angel designation in a way by saving the life of Deckard. He ultimately finds his humanity by saving Deckard's life. In an act of compassion, he illustrates that he indeed is more human than human, more human than all the apathetic humans who either condone the death of the replicants or were indifferent to their deaths in the world of Blade Runner. The dove represents the Holy Spirit and the promise made to Noah, which frees us from our fear, the fear of death. And remember what Roy said: to live life in fear is to be a slave, a life for a life. I love Roy's dialogue, easily the best dialogue in the entire film. Quite an experience to live in fear. That's what it is to be a slave. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Now we come to the whole big question, the elephant in the room that everyone talks about. Is Deckard a replicant? There are numerous hints in the film that he may be a replicant, such as when he tells Rachel he wouldn't come after her, and you can see the look in his eyes. His eyes glow, similar to the replicants when they take the Voight Kampff test. And also, there's a scene when Rachel asks Deckard if he's ever taken the test, and he falls asleep, and the answer to the question is unanswered, further leading to more ambiguity in regards to this matter. And if you look at Deckard's apartment, you see photos from people that he couldn't have known. These photos look like they were from the early 1900s. And it just leads you to ask, as a viewer, as the audience, why does he have all these photos of people he doesn't know? And again, is he creating his own life with artificial memories similar to the artificial memories that are implanted in the replicant? And for me, it illustrates Deckard's loneliness. And also, coming back to what I said in the introduction to this video, is how this whole artificial memory thing just, for some reason, for me, I see a lot of similarity with the advent of social media. So many people investing into the lives of others, the photos of others, the videos of others people's lives. And for me, there has to be probably thousands, perhaps even millions of people who are lonely and that look at other people's social media with envy and sadness because they don't have those memories, those similar memories. They don't have the good times with families. They don't have the wives. They don't have the husbands. They don't have the achievements that they're seeing in other people's social media. And it totally reminds me of when I see Deckard with all these photos of families and people that he couldn't have known, because you could tell that these photos are from a distant past. And it clearly illustrates how lonely of a guy he really is. And another little hint that I found, or that I took away from the movie, is when he says that he dreamt music. And then we also know that Tyrell's niece, Rachel, has memories of playing the music as her niece. It's not really her remembering, it's Tyrell's niece's memory. So I thought that was a little interesting. Also, there's the whole sequence where Deckard has the daydream of the unicorn. And then we can see the origami unicorn that Edward James Olmos' character leaves at his doorstep, hinting that maybe Deckard has implanted memories. Because how would Edward James Olmos' character know what's in his mind? Is it an implanted memory? Is it an artificial memory? It's up to us. And again, for me, the key theme here is loneliness. Creating friends, creating memories. We have J.F. Sebastian creating friends with the little robotic figures that he creates for himself. We see Deckard surrounding himself with photos from people he doesn't know, and that's him creating memories. And I really feel like this is trying to convey to the viewer, to the audience, the similarity that normal people have with these replicants. And I really think that is the beauty of this film. Now, as far as the filmmakers, they are split down the middle, which seems that Harrison Ford totally disagrees that Deckard is a replicant. He wants to believe that he is a human character, whereas Ridley Scott wants to push the notion that Deckard is a replicant. Now, in regards to the novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which this film is based off, there is some pretty fascinating stuff in there. I mean, there was a certain portion in that book where I didn't know whether the protagonist, Deckard, was a replicant or a human. Like, it was great. It was outstanding storytelling and writing. And basically, what happens is Deckard attempts to administer the empathy test to a replicant, but this person calls the police, and the police fail to recognize Deckard as a bounty hunter, and they arrest him and detain him, and he ends up in this police station that he's never heard of, and filled with officers and administrators that he's never met before and never heard of. And then another officer named Garland accuses Deckard of being an android with implanted memories. And this in this part of the book, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Because I didn't know. At this point, you ask yourself, is this character, this protagonist that I'm reading about, who I've been following this whole time, are all his memories fake? Is he an android? And it was fascinating. Now, ultimately, what happens is, after a series of mysterious revelations, Deckard ponders the ethical questions regarding his line of work as a bounty hunter, and he asks himself what it means to be human. And what happens is Garland points his gun at Deckard and reveals that the entire station, the police station, is a hoax, claiming both that he and another bounty hunter present named Phil are androids. Now, Phil shoots Garland in the head and escapes with Deckard back to the opera singer that he gave the original test to. And basically, Phil brutally kills the singer in cold blood. And he alludes that he himself may be an android. Now, desperate to know the truth, this Phil character asks Deckard to administer the empathy test on him, which confirms that he is actually human. But a ruthless one, right? So again, it's this whole like, am I real or am I an android thing going on in this book? And the only reason why I bring it up is because the whole ambiguity of whether these characters are human or whether they're androids or replicants is part of the central theme of Blade Runner. It's not really the answer that matters, because once this character in the book, Phil, finds out that he's human, he feels inhuman. Because if he was an android, he could excuse his immoral behavior, the ruthlessness that he implemented when he killed the opera singer. But now that he knows that he's human, he doesn't really feel human. He feels immoral, man. He feels evil. And ultimately what happens is Deckard tests himself and he finds out that he's human, and then the story in the book continues, whatever. But again, I bring it up just to illustrate the themes that were brought from the book to the film. And I think the writers, the screenplay writers, Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, did an outstanding job here, especially with transitioning and bringing those themes from the book into the film, and at the same time making it different. So both screenplay writers, Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, did an outstanding job right here, as well as the actors who improvised and came up with some of the most memorable lines of dialogue. And again, the ongoing debate illustrates the brilliance of this narrative that is Blade Runner. For me, this is the point of the film. Whether Deckard was a replicant or not doesn't matter as much as the loneliness and yearning for genuine memories that we all have in our hearts. It's about wanting to have happiness in one's life, regardless if one is a replicant or a human. All sentient beings can feel this, and this comes full circle, whether the audience identifies with Roy or human Deckard or the replicant Deckard. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we identify with these characters. We see ourselves in these characters. The loneliness, the longing for more time to live, more memories to cherish, genuine memories. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from Oscar Wilde. The tragedy of old age is not that one is old, but that one is young. Thank you guys for listening to this thesis for one of my favorite films ever, Blade Runner. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. And take care, people. I appreciate all of you. One love.